What? New DVDs again? Well, you know what that means. It means I talk about movies for a few minutes. This week a bunch of movies came out, and I wasn't able to see all of them. Most notably, I didn't see Everybody's Fine or the September issue. However, I've seen enough to give reviews for 5 movies. First, I want to address Richard Kelly's The Box, but only briefly, because I've already stated enough about it in my worst of video. It's a terrible film, and I'm wasting time just saying that. Don't rent it. Leave it out of your mind. Okay. Next, I saw the direct-to-video DC animated movie Justice League Crisis on Two Earths. It was actually really good. It was originally planned like 6 or 7 years ago as a bridge between Justice League and Justice League Unlimited, but I guess budget restraints forced them to put it on hold. A good rewrite years later and a few changes in the character models and a different voice cast, and we have the current movie. It works pretty much the same as the animated shows worked, examining the nature of heroism. It's a bit more violent and mature, but it's not really that much of a difference. I'd recommend it for a rental, and if you're really into superheroes, maybe even to buy if you can find it relatively cheap. Now on to the 3 big releases. First is Sorority Row. This is a really stupid movie, but it's a stereotypical slasher. The final girl, the phallic weapon, the masked, nearly unstoppable killer, the ridiculous twist ending, all of that's here. The good thing is that the kills are relatively creative and really bloody, so it keeps you interested, if only to see the next death. However, on at least the Blu-ray, which I rented, there is a feature that literally fast-forwards the film to the kills. So, I mean, the plot really isn't important at all. I understand that a lot of people really enjoy stereotypical slasher movies, and the conventions are part of the charm. I personally like it in a minimal capacity because sometimes purposeful badness goes too far. This gets close to it, but I think I can still recommend it for the die-hard horror fans, but know what you're getting into here. People with little interest in horror films should skip it. The Informant. Okay, this movie I personally love, but I think it was mismarketed as a sort of Ocean's 11 burn after reading hybrid. It really isn't that funny. I mean, it is funny, but I think it has more in common with a more biting satire like In the Loop, sort of mixed with a corporate corruption tale like Michael Clayton. Pretty much it isn't as funny as I hoped, but Damon's performance is amazing, and the character study that follows is actually really poignant, and it sucked me in. I was interested the entire time. It isn't for everybody, but I certainly think it was one of the better films of 2009. If you like director Steven Soderbergh, or if you go into this relatively open, I think you'll be pleasantly pleased. I say give it a rent. Finally, I have Cirque du Freak, The Vampire's Assistant, and I don't like the title. I know it's based off a book, but still, couldn't you just at least call it The Vampire's Assistant? It's pretty much one of those, I'll check it out when it comes to rental movies. And I could tell that before I went to see it. I knew that it was only rental worthy. It's obviously playing off the current vampire trend. I think it starts off pretty well, actually, using the right amount of tongue-in-cheek humor to keep the teen angst from getting too obviously cliched. But once you get to the actual plot, you realize it just goes the route of The Covenant or Twilight, and that it's one of those war of mythical, magical beings for the control of the world bit. And you know what? I'm seeing a lot of these type movies, and also ones that deal with apprenticeship. There's Percy Jackson, there's The Sorcerer's Apprentice coming out later this year. We're in this age of adolescent fantasy, and it's starting to get stale really fast. You know, I'll say that John C. Reilly's performance is good, and the villain is pretty purposefully campy, but most of the actual action sequences are pretty lame, and the side characters are never really given due time. I'll only suggest this as a rental if you've already seen some of the better rentals and have nothing else to watch. Otherwise, it's just too cliched and too serious for me to give it a really solid recommendation. Alright, that's it for the DVD reviews. Next week, I should have reviews for Shutter Island, which I've already seen, and The Crazies, which I plan to see this upcoming weekend. Alright, catch you then.